Thank you for joining another episode of Attribution Nation. In our new series, our current series, we're stepping into the C-suite to hear directly from CMOs navigating today's most complex marketing challenges. From AI disruption to the age-old alignment battles with sales, we'll unpack the real reporting and data problems that leaders are solving for, and the ones that still keep them up at night sometimes. Join us for candid conversations that go beyond metrics into the strategies, experiments, and lessons shaping the future of marketing leadership. In this episode, I am joined by Megan Lueders, CMO of Sonatype. And in this interview, we're going to be talking a lot about everybody's favorite topic right now, which is AI, and how Sonatype is embracing AI as a security company themselves. So, Megan, we're going to start not there, though. We're going to go back into some history. Tell us a little bit about how you first got into marketing and a little bit about your career path.
Perfect. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. A pleasure to be here. So my journey, I started many years ago in marketing as product marketing. I wore the hat as a product marketer after going through kind of a management rotation program with my first employer. And product marketing has really allowed me to kind of cut my teeth at a variety of different aspects of marketing. That quickly allowed me to go deeper into the discipline of demand generation. And at the time, that's when the word of SEO and SEM or pay-per-click were just getting underway. And I worked for a company, a startup that was new to the scene in launching a video conferencing platform and true physical equipment. Wasn't Zoom-like or Teams yet. It was physical equipment, and took full advantage of this new contraption called digital marketing and went heavy on pay-per-click SEO. And that's where I kind of cut my teeth at demand gen. And from there, that led to channel marketing. It led to Marcom. I mean, you name it. I've kind of run that aspect of the business, the marketing business, and have done it all under the context of small companies, startup to large public companies, private equity, venture backed, and a variety of sizes along the way. So, but it was very traditional. I'd say a traditional route in terms of just wore a lot of different hats within the marketing discipline. But product marketing was a great foundation to learn, and then from there, really kind of took it through demand gen up to channel, product, and so forth.
Awesome. And tell us a little bit about what you're doing now.
Yeah, so now it brings me to where I am as Sonatype. We are headquartered out of the kind of the DC, Maryland area, which is where a lot of security companies are based. And I'm actually based in Austin, Texas, so truly embracing that hybrid work environment and love it. And I've been here about 2 years. This is my first foray into security as a discipline. And that's one thing I'll say in terms of my career, and something I encourage a lot of other marketers, whether they're emerging or growing or more senior folks, is I had a diversified background of industry. And so that allowed me to think differently about the persona that we were selling to. It challenged my line of thought because I wasn't familiar with it. And I think it makes you more nimble as a marketer because you have to get to know the customer so quickly upon coming into an organization, whereas you don't have necessarily some of those preconceived ideas or notions about them. At the same time, I had a longer learning curve than others. So there's trade-offs, but I do think it helps. It certainly helped me run a lot faster because I knew I needed to get to know the customer in a much more intimate way than I had before. So here I am at Sonatype. We are owned by private equity, by Vista, and have had a great run here so far.
Awesome. I love your little comment there about how, you're new to security and how that kind of brings a different perspective to how you're kind of leading marketing, because you haven't been stuck in security for 20 years, where had they chosen somebody that'd been stuck in security for 20 years, they wouldn't bring a different opinion or a different perspective. And I think that kind of flies in the face of a lot of common hiring practices, which is, no, I need somebody that's done this exact same thing for basically one of our competitors, and that's it. So I think that's...
I think the one thing I'll say to it is that, in particular, because of AI and because of how quickly the world is changing and the discipline of marketing is changing as a result of AI, but further, how the world of security, code development, software development, companies' staffing is changing. having someone done it for 20 years, it is going to be disrupted because of those things I just mentioned. And so, again, having that agility to quickly think about the problem or the persona, but seeing the landscape unfold so rapidly and being familiar to adapt, I think is what will allow a company like Sonatype to be a stronger external branded company because of it as well, and take full advantage of kind of the changing dynamic of the workplace and the software development life cycle and supply chain, but then ultimately how security is being delivered within these organizations or ensured within these organizations as they come to grips with what is happening within their own organizations.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think particularly marketing, but business in general is changing at such a rapid pace. I don't think I've ever seen this much change this rapidly in my career. And I mean, I've been doing this for a long time myself. So yeah, which is a great segue into the next portion of our conversation. And I want to kind of do a quick intro on this as to why I think this is an important part of our conversation, which is, you and I had a little bit of a conversation about AI last time we talked, and I thought it was really interesting to hear Sonatype's perspective on AI, especially considering Sonatype is a security company and obviously has to take security very, very seriously. And one of the biggest concerns for a lot of organizations in adopting AI is the security concern, because you don't want the AI to train on what you feed into it, because if it does, then it may spit something back out on the back end to somebody else. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you and your team are using AI. And we'll start with that, but there's a lot more to this conversation.
Okay, sure. And, I think there's multiple facets, obviously, about AI in the organization, right? There's how the product is being adopted and adapting to AI, how it's being integrated into true product development. And so that's one aspect of the business. And of course, we've been at the forefront. We've been doing it for years. We were way ahead of the game on that front. But then in terms of how each department and specifically marketing is embracing it, clearly as a marketer, we have data upon data sets to work with. And we needed to ensure that our data was very protected, and always that is at the forefront, right? And whether it's customer data, whether it's buying behavior changes, whether it is content and how we write and react to content changes, but also readership and views, that had to be something that we needed to advance pretty quickly and take advantage of obviously these tools. But what we needed to do was ensure that we had some governance in place, but also went out very quickly within the team to say that we're going to be an AI first marketing organization, right? Like we needed to take advantage if we were going to continue to be kind of a first mover marketing team, but also be responsive to what the customers needed. We were going to have to put some governance in place, but also change the mentality of how we go to market. And so both things were done in parallel. And at the same time, we had a workforce, right? A team that needed to also get groomed and learn and embrace and get excited about it. And so we had a lot of fun get-togethers and team builds where AI was a part of it, and how we really encouraged people just to dabble in it, whether it was go find a tool that can make you more effective. And we each had to do a little video that talked about how this tool helped me in my job. And then we took the three best presenters and the tools or technologies that we were all most excited about, and then asked the employee or the team member to elaborate on it. It was baby steps because this was so new, and because there was not a playbook for us to read from or have someone guide us. And so those were small ways, but then there's a lot of courses and sharing of prompts and challenges of, hey, did we run something through AI and see what it could spit back? A lot of those challenges that we're constantly encouraging each other to ask that helped advance that. But at the end of the day, you asked about security. And we absolutely had to do everything I just mentioned, the experimentation as well as the adoption under the confines of governance. And so we had to invest, whether that was in enterprise license or enterprise controls, that was kind of at the top of the list to ensure that whatever we were doing was in, the walls of just our company, or even that within that, just our team.
Got it. Got it. Now, it sounds like you almost did like an internal like hackathon kind of thing where you had people like try to figure out some good use cases and hack it together and then present. Did you find that some of the results from your internal hackathon actually are kind of in use today or inspired something that's in use today?
It's certainly, I think the word inspired is key, right? I think it inspired the curiosity. And, when you've been a marketer, whether it's for 5 years or 5 minutes, right? We have to be curious as a steward of the discipline, because if we're not, right, the customer changes their buying habits, their behaviors. And so if we're not constantly curious of how to reach them differently, then we're left behind and we become stagnant. And so whatever the tool was, and in this little hackathon experimentation that we did, I mean, again, this was a year ago. A year ago, we were doing this. It sparked the level of curiosity to say, okay, whether that tool was the right one or not, or that thought process was, it certainly inspired to go challenge and to go test and try something else. What it also did, though, was people started to see the efficiencies with it. They started to see I could go faster, or, oh, I don't need a week, I need a day. And in fact, a day can be turned into an hour. And that was encouraging, right? When people, especially in marketing, feel inundated with work and, how do I get ahead of the curve, or my to-do list is so long. We're curious enough now and know there's an answer for that, right? Like I can chat GPT, how do I do this? And now I have an answer. And so if that is what it sparked, and I may not know how to code, but I can chat GPT how to code and put two things together that are challenging of me, or I want to bring data sets together to have the answer. And before I had to send that over to a data scientist to analyze, wait a couple days, have them give me, their hypothesis, their recommendations. And now I can do that myself. Not only have the data compiled, have the recommendation in place and suggested, but now I can say, okay, give me an A and B version of how I might go to market or how I might utilize that data in this environment. And I can do all of that myself. So the level of empowerment that what started out as curiosity and let's just kind of experiment and test has really turned into kind of making every single individual marketer empower them, but put them more in control of their destiny and how they're going to reach their outcomes. And it's also shrunk the amount of time it's taking to do that, right? It didn't require all the resources.
So it sounds like, just from that conversation, it sounds like there's a few different use cases that you all have found. One of them being, general process and efficiency increases. Another one being using AI to help generate code for different purposes. And then another one being data analysis and data, I mean, I'll call it like data transformation and data analysis. Is that a fair encapsulation of kind
Yeah,
of
and
some
I
of the
would
main
say,
use cases?
yeah, a couple other things. I mean, approvals certainly are a lot faster because I can see it, I can approve it and move it on. Content creation, significant advancement. In fact, we just had a meeting where the outcome, I want to say it was 46% more efficient in writing the same number of content pieces as we did before. I mean, those are major productivity gains. The readership of the content is better, it's deeper because the content is more rich or it's more fact finding. So content development, even creative, right? I can now have a team member, instead of them having to go to a creative director to build an ad, I can GPT that, right? I've got a tool that can do that, and my campaign manager can do that completely. They didn't have to go and get a creative to do something and then get that approved. They could kind of be in control of their entire campaign from beginning to end, whether it was content development, whether it was creative, whether it was, hey, I'm stuck on how I could reach this persona a little bit more effectively. What type of content could I reach? And here's what I know about the data. That whole entire play is now expedited. What's even more kind of cool of that is not only can I bring it all together, I have it now orchestrated through whether it's an ABM platform tool or whether it's a HubSpot, a CMS or sorry, CRM or MAP tool. I can put all of that in there on my own. And that person that had codependencies on 10 different people into that orchestration is now really dependent on one or two people at most to get that out the door. And then I've got A/B testing. And so it's just the amount of things that would have been on all of our wish lists is like, oh, I wish I could do A/B testing. Oh, I wish I could experiment with different content pieces and see which one's going to resonate. Oh, that means I have to get a different writer. All of that now is possible and it's happening real time. And I have metrics within a matter of days opposed to weeks or months that is going to allow us to make different decisions. So it's beyond, yes, data scientists, yes, data collection, yes, data analysis, all that stuff is great. Yes, I can do coding because chat's going to tell me how to put it together. But the entire orchestration of content, of design, of display, of orchestrating the back end, making sure my setup is proper in hubs. I just heard today that our marketing automation platform is now going to be integrated with ChatGPT, which the benefit of that is I can say, hey, this is the target segment I want to reach. I need you to build me the workflow that's going to allow to do it. And I need you to be responsive in emails so it can do X, Y, and Z. To hear that we might have that capability in the near month or two to do that is pretty impressive. And the speed of which we can hit a different target now is realistic. And it's not something that's just the stretch goal. It's the near term goal that we can reach.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it sounds like you guys have just kind of like fully embraced it and are just using it throughout the entire organization and throughout the entire process. And that's incredible. That's kudos to you and your team. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think it's a testament too, right? The organization allowed for it to happen. And at the same time, I was on a call this morning where I heard it was another CMO, and they said they're just trying to convince their CEO to bring in AI and bring in these type of tools. And it's like, I couldn't imagine. So I do think it starts from organization kind of leadership and strategic vision of not only are we going to be a company that embraces it from how we built our product years ago with AI and LLMs already a big part of it, but how we are going to use it to be a faster, nimbler, more responsive, better company overall is core to who we are.
Well, and one of the things that you mentioned to me when we talked last that has really just stuck with me. As a matter of fact, I've told a couple of other people about this part of the conversation specifically, is you mentioned that when you're doing vendor evaluations, that you are asking them how they're using AI and factoring that into your vendor evaluations. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'd love to. In fact, I presented the other day at a conference, and this was one of my parting words, and I feel so strongly about this. Any vendor that you are evaluating, if you do not understand their roadmap and how they themselves are embracing AI internally and how they're embracing it in their roadmap, if you don't understand that, it is a clear line of sight of how long that particular tool, that particular technology may or may not be viable within your organization a year on out, right? So said it a little differently, when we are doing vendor evaluation, I personally will get on the call with almost every either CEO or head of biz dev or product, and I will go deep on what that roadmap looks like. I need to understand it. I need to understand where the resources are played, how that roadmap is being built, what the customer influence is. And I'm using that to evaluate, is this a vendor that we are going to be a partner with long term? Because all of us know, right? Implementing a technology is not, a snap of the fingers. We think it is, and we're promised that it is, but it never is. And so by better understanding how they themselves are embracing this modernization of agentic AI, as well as just how it's being incorporated into the product and how that's going to respond for their customers and what their thought process is to how it's being influenced, that is going to give me an indication whether it's the right vendor or not. We have made decisions to pull out of projects with vendors because that conversation did not go the right way. It was short-sighted. It wasn't long-term. Didn't provide enough of a roadmap to give us comfort. And again, we know that lifting and shifting tech and any part of our tech stack is more than just a light switch that we turn on and off. And so we need to make a strong investment. So those were kind of one of my parting words was make sure that vendor evaluation is done, not just because I appreciate how they're going to help me on the install or, they gave me a good price and it's competitive. Those are great. That is not what is going to win our business. And so a critical piece to how we do vendor evaluation. And with that said, we've done a lot of tech consolidation because I think the market is ripe for that, and understanding someone's roadmap and how these products that are becoming more platform oriented are enabling that tech consolidation to happen is something else that's also on our minds. Because when you come into an organization and you see that you have 25 tools and 10 of them can do very similar things, you sit there and say, gosh, we've got to find a way to consolidate. So again, really, really going deep and understanding how either the roadmap can support that or how their vision can, and how my feedback and partnership can be a vital part of that integration or their feature development is a strong aspect of what makes us pick vendors that we know are going to be longer term than just, a year on out contract.
Well, it was a really interesting conversation when we had it the last time, and I'll be completely honest with you. It's changed our perspective on AI a little bit, because we've embraced AI to a certain extent, but hearing you and how Sonatype is approaching this, it's kind of given us a little bit of a kick in the pants to expand our usage of AI and get a little more creative. So it's certainly influenced us. That's for sure.
Well, and the other piece of it too is flip it around, right? How your customers are making evaluation on what vendors they're going to go with. So much of that buying decision, right? There's published results that say 80% of that buying decision's already determined before they ever reach out and, let's say, call you and talk to you on the phone. And so how do you influence that decision is also just as important. So how the tools that we have are able to respond to a marketplace that is changing so rapidly that customers are being influenced by what's happening in this AI world and the world of search in particular, to how we ourselves are picking technology. If we're not up with that, then we're not going to be able to be effective marketers to our customers that we know are doing the exact same evaluation, whether it's today or tomorrow, whether it's executive level or practitioner. We know that they will have some of the same means or have the same means that we do in our vendor evaluation. So it challenges both parties internally and externally by having that mentality. And that is, my team is very clear that that is how we have to think if we're gonna get ahead.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. It's a really smart approach. Now, because this is Attribution Nation, we have to talk a little bit more about data. So again, in our last conversation, we talked a little bit about how Sonatype and your team are being better stewards of data through the lens of AI. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're approaching data and AI together?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, we love data, and being part of a private equity organization, they love data too. And so we from day one are grounded in terms of what's working, right? How are we driving pipeline further? What are the programs? What are the tactics? What are the learnings that we're seeing? What's interesting about data is that before, what I would use the term piecemeal. Everything was piecemeal. I could see how a webinar performed. I can see how an email performed. But what was missing in all of that was, like, how do you aggregate all of this together? Because we all know a purchasing decision is not done by one person. It's done by a committee, and it is done by multiple people in the committee with multiple touch points. And the way you receive a touch point is very different than how I want my touch points. And so the challenge of the past of attribution was that I could measure each successful tactic very well, and I had that level of depth. And then comes the age of ABM, and I could start to look at the account level and start to see multiple touch points in that customer journey emerge a little differently. But attribution, and where I believe we will all get to in the very near future, is going to paint a different picture that is more not just deeply refined in terms of these are all the touch points. It's going to hopefully, with the help of AI, it's going to be able to tell me about more deeply about the competitive intelligence that the person sought. It's going to tell me what are some of the questions that was being asked in the LLMs, right? Like, who are the top 5 vendors that do this? What should I know before I buy? And I'm using data what I can get my hands around data today in terms of the individual touch points, and I'm aggregating that through the chats of the world or Anthropy's, right? I'm aggregating all of that through our tools to spit out kind of that analysis that said, here's what these personas are doing, here's how often they're doing it, and here's the multiple touch points. And then again, before that was all piecemealed, and now I'll have the ability to do that a little bit more holistically, and then slice it by region, by persona, by product type, and so forth. Clearly the tools that do this are advancing too. And you've had some of those great vendors on your podcast already. They're changing how they look and what the data can provide to you. But what has changed overall is that instead of it just being on attribution, it's really turning into what is that customer journey and how do we as marketers respond to that customer journey, because I have a better handle on specific tactics and the attribution associated to each one of those tactics more holistically. Whereas before, I don't think we as marketers would talk about that customer buyer's journey with as much intelligence as what we have today.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think one of the interesting things that you mentioned is people searching, LLMs to discover the top 5 solutions for XYZ. And it's an interesting thing that we're seeing a lot of in the data is we don't see a lot of organizations, we don't see a lot of traffic that comes directly from the LLMs. Like where you can see that the LLM was the referring URL of that traffic. But we are seeing a lot of folks coming direct or through organic search. And so I think what's happening right now in the market is that folks are using the LLMs, the ChatGPTs of the world, to discover potential solutions and then going to the website on their own using either typing it in direct or using traditional organic search from Google to find the website, but that discovery is taking place on the LLMs, and they're using the LLMs more from a research lens than using Google's organic search for research. And it's kind of changing the way that the data is being surfaced to us, because you can't really, when somebody does their research on an LLM and then comes to your website, either direct or through organic search, that LLM piece is pretty much like invisible to, the way that we traditionally track things.
Yeah, we just had this very conversation about 2 hours ago, and we were looking at the results of, what comes in traditionally direct and organic, and then what's coming in through the LLMs. And what we're seeing is like, we can actually measure what the traffic has been to those traditional models and where it is now transitioning by looking at what people also ask, or what is being presented up into things to know or the knowledge panel. And what we're seeing is those SERP trends are changing. So while we might have the same number of impressions as we did before, maybe they're going down on traditional search. That transition of where it came from AI or from the LLMs over, we are seeing that spike, but that's taken a lot of time and some coding to be able to see that attribution. What is going to be interesting to understand in time, though, is how can I be more effective at looking at exactly what those search phrases were in the LLMs and converting it with the actual content that they were looking for, or what I want them to look for on our site. But we are currently measuring, and every single company, I cannot imagine any that doesn't see it this way. We're all feeling the pains of our web traffic is going down. We're seeing that, but I am seeing the increase of traffic that is coming, the referral traffic that's coming from the LLMs or from the people also ask or things to know sites of the generative AI back to our site. It's just, I can't yet make that connection to what to do with it, and just a matter of time. But it's, it's also challenged us to rethink SEO and the vendors that we're using for SEO. And again, how are the vendors being responsive to an AI and responsive approach to tackle this challenge as much as they are to make sure that we maintain what has been ours for all these years, which is dominance on the SEO organic side. And I'm seeing the numbers go down. It's very scary. It is what keeps you up at night. And it's just a matter of time until we, hope to figure it out. The same way that we understand that the display ad network is going to change, right? You used to pay all this money and still pay all this money for ads on Google, and OpenAI one day is going to do ads. I mean, the article that they just published a couple of weeks ago, it alluded to it. It's not today, it's not tomorrow, but it's going to happen. And we will have to be ready for that. But you already see the shift. If I have less traffic on Google, where are those people going and how do I get my name out there? I've got to wait for the advertising side of that business to come alive before I can control it a little bit more. But until then, it's a game of optimizing every way I can to make sure I show up and am relevant in those LLMs. And, that's a bit of a training that we all have to do.
Well, it's interesting because, undoubtedly, just like how once search became the way that you find organizations online and everybody needs to optimize their search results, as the whole SEO industry was born, we're going to have an industry that's born about getting into the recommendations from LLMs. Like some folks are going to figure that out and figure out kind of how the LLMs do that. I know some folks are already kind of like figuring some things out as to how the LLMs prioritize, but there's going to be an industry that shoots up out of making sure that you get into those LLM results, undoubtedly.
Undoubtedly. And then the question will be, how long are they relevant, right? Because it'll be the next thing. This is the hardest part, and why I went back to the roadmap and who's this visionary up at the top and how do you grow? But I do think the rapid pace of which we have seen and experienced some of this change is only going to get faster. And so the responsiveness that we all have with these changes is going to be kind of the person that continues to win in the marketplace, because it can change overnight.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So in our last conversation, we also talked a little bit about how marketing data is being shared across other teams in the Sonatype organization. So like you mentioned that you're sharing marketing data with customer success and also with like sales enablement. Tell us a little bit about how you're leveraging marketing data in other groups within Sonatype.
Yeah, sure. And I'll give a pretty detailed example on this one. And for years, marketing has benefited from knowing what is working and what's not. We talked about what webinars are being downloaded, consumed, what emails are being downloaded. And we were the hoarders of this data. Like we knew what levers to pull to get more of this and more of that. And it wasn't until we were able to translate what was working into how this was influencing customers' behavior changes in terms of what were they searching on, who else, what competitors were they searching on, did it get very interesting to other parts of the organization. Specifically, we use 6 Sense. It could be demand-based. There's plenty out there, but we are a 6 Sense customer. We can now say, here's an account. Here is what they're currently searching on. That includes maybe you, but maybe not you. Maybe it includes your competitors. And I can start to see those signals. And while I might know again, back in the past, I knew what they were consuming of our content or watching of our videos or our webinars. And while that was interesting, the minute I could translate and say, hey, I've got a customer or prospect that isn't necessarily watching our stuff, but they're watching our competitors, that becomes very interesting to sales or to customer success or to enablement to better understand, okay, if I'm going to build content, I want to build content to train my sales team because this is what it looks like we're going up against, right? I can be smarter about my approach to that content delivery. I can be much smarter about the type of targeting and the personalization approach I want to take if I understand a specific account or clusters of accounts or clusters of personas that are doing have these type of activities. So in 6 Sense, if I see that company X is all over our website, and I can also see, perhaps some of the downloads that they've been consuming, as well as the type of people on the site, and then I see maybe something they do on the competitive side, that makes for a lot more compelling personalization that I may have later on with that customer, whether it's driven by marketing or sales, or if they're an existing customer, what the customer support, customer success team may do with that data. So there's a lot more use cases in that, but it could help everything from retention and renewals to new customer logo acquisition to even expansion. And, we're in the enterprise sales business and our customers tend to be very, very large. And so oftentimes we may have sold a product to this group and this organization over here, and some other organization that may also need, or department division may need that same tool, they might not even know we exist because the organization is so large. And so if I can get that trigger that says, hey, somebody at this company is searching on a tool or familiar phrase that we play in, it's another new opportunity for that sales rep. It's an expansion opportunity. And otherwise I would never have known that. And so kind of those radars go off and they're starting to flag to marketing and to sales a little differently than they would have in the past. And that's come a long ways in the last, 10 years or so because of ABM platforms and the sophistication of tools like a 6sense and Demandbase. But that data is now being shared amongst larger aspects of the organization, whereas before marketing, not only were we the buyers, we were the installers and we were the hoarders. And marketing, I believe, is really the nucleus of customer data, customer intelligence. And we have all these tentacles that we can go play into different aspects of the business. And we just need to actually make them fruitful for every piece of the business, whether I'm a PLG part of the business, whether it's the customer success team that just wants to know what's going on with their customers, or sales that's looking for expansion opportunities or new growth. We can all benefit from this customer intelligence, but we've got to have the tentacles into the rest of the organization to do so. But this data is making that much more inviting, but also welcoming by the other teams as well.
Yeah, I've got a couple of follow-up questions on that. So, because we see all the time where sales always says we want more data, we want more data, and this is I'm not harping on sales in any way, shape, or form here, but they say we want more data, we want more data, but then a lot of times it's like, no, not that data, no, not that data, no, not that data. How did you navigate getting alignment between marketing and sales on which data was useful and which data they wanted to be passed along?
Right. And I think this is partly the maturity of kind of what marketing has had to go through over the last couple of years that maybe precedes where sales is, right? Sales only knew what to ask for because it's either what they had before, they were familiar with it from past. And now marketing for several years has had the ability to not only receive all those same data points, but to aggregate them. And because marketing has really transformed as a function to be about brand and demand, we own the pipeline. And so our need to think like a salesperson, how am I going to go attract customers? How am I going to reach them? And we've had to try and experiment. We've been the data aggregators that have now figured out what are the right types of data sets that you may need. So when we do go to sales, we can present them and say, hey, we've got all these insights, but here's best practices, or here's what we would recommend that some of the data points that you take to craft an email or to invite somebody to this event. And here's what I would say. And so there's a lot more. It's not that marketing would ever tell sales what to do, but there's a lot more guidance and best practices. But behind those guidance and best practices are metrics and learnings, because we ourselves have had to do it for the last couple of years as marketing, the function has had to transform to kind of act like, early stage sellers in a lot of ways to go drive demand using these tools. And so when we come forward, I was with sales this week and showing them, hey, here's some of the data that I have at my fingertips. Here's how you could invite them to this event, or, here's how we could suggest this type of kind of add-on. And by showing them the data, and here's just some ideas, but being a little bit more prescriptive and then showing that the automation is there to make it easy for them, their reluctance of the past is gone, because they're saying, gosh, not only have you given me the data, you've practically built the play for me, and you've proven in the past with metrics, this is what best practices are. The biggest piece, though, they're in control. So they've got the levers. They can still customize. They can still personalize. They are in full control of what needs to happen to make any of their own changes. There's nothing that marketing is kind of doing and that they're locked out of. But that data is, I will say the eyeballs open more boldly today than ever before because we have so much rich data to give them. but it also can be analysis paralysis when you give them all that. So the more we can refine and provide a play, the more welcoming it has been.
Well, and that kind of is a segue into my next question that I had about this topic is, again, and this is not to harp on sales in any way, shape, or form, but a lot of times we get to the point where we provide all this data, we've aligned with sales, and we're providing the data, and we're bringing in good, rich, actionable data, and then it never gets used, it never gets adopted. So how are you helping to solve that usage and adoption problem where we know that sales is actually using this data that we're now feeding them?
Yeah, honestly, I think the function of sales is going to transform over time, because I think marketing is in a position to do so much of that for on behalf of sales, right? Like we can package it all up. We can actually do a lot of that, a lot of the marketing, the personalization, the aggregation of the data, the insights. We can evaluate, do the analysis of how the right approach is. And so we can do a lot of that, which would free up a seller to really be enabled and empowered to actually just do the selling, like to be in front of the customer. I can never do that, right? That's what sales reps are there for. But if I can augment how a salesperson spends their time to do some of that prospecting, administration part, researching, to go out and to reach those customers and engage with them more actively, I can enable a sales team to transform to really just be, I won't say feet on the street, but to be the voice in front of the customer, and enable marketing to do a little bit more of that lifting up front. And I think it is going to change over time. But when marketing comes forward, I think marketers always have to watch that they never tell. They just, they show and they help. But when it's done from the context of, here's what we can do to make your life better so that your best skills are utilized to the fullest, which is, you're the only one who can close a deal. I can't do that. In fact, I can't even get close to that. And how you can go pitch, build that relationship in person. Those are things that, marketing can't. We watch it, but we're not the ones doing that.
Yeah. So do you find that in order to make sure that this stuff gets used and adopted, do you find that you have to do continuous ongoing
Yes.
training and like on a
Training.
monthly basis
Yeah.
reinforce the stuff or?
It's training, but I would also say it's partnering. And so, we've gone to a model where we're doing one-to-ones every month, every week, right? It just depends on what it is, whether it's pipeline reviews on a weekly basis to marketing sales campaign reviews every other week. We're doing a lot more partnering. Whereas before, I think, that definition of training is one to many, and it's not a two-way dialogue. And I think what's changed or needs to change is that in order for you to take advantage of these tools and this data, there's got to be a conversation, and it can't be a set it and forget it, or here's the data, go do with it what you can, because it is overwhelming and there's a lot to do with it. And so the aspect of partnership is much more significant. And I will invest my team's time to sit on weekly calls or on daily calls to help ensure the enablement, not just training, but the enablement, fulfillment, and help is there on a much more active basis than what it might have been in the past, where it was like, hey, let me show you this new tool and now go forth and you'll be successful. It never works that way. Also ensuring that it's a two-way street, right? Like, let us know what's not working, right? We want to hear what's not working. Let us help fix. And so whether it's pipeline days, pipeline kind of growth days where we're all out dialing and emailing, what worked today? What didn't work today? What can we help build for you? And that's a partnership. And that is done very, very regularly. And it's done at the leadership level. So my counterpart on the sales side, we probably talk every day, if not a couple times a day, but it's done at the next level down. So that VP or director level, they're talking all the time to sales leadership and marketing leadership to make sure that their sellers have what they need and vice versa. And then we're doing the one-to-ones with the sales reps themselves.
So I was going to ask kind of organizationally how you manage that, because I've seen some organizations where that's really primarily done through the C-level executives. I've seen some organizations that have like liaisons, and a lot of their role is to liaise between marketing and sales. And then I've also seen organizations where it's literally just embedded and entrenched throughout the entire marketing organization. So from your standpoint, it sounds like it's a little bit of like a top-down type of methodology. Is that
Yeah, I mean, I
fair?
think anything that's going to work has to go from bottoms up and tops down, right? Everybody's got to be on board and it's got to start at the top, but it's really got to be embraced from the bottom up, right? No one wants to be forced and told what to do. It's got to come together on both sides. What has worked well is when, BDRs, SDRs, they are in that middle role between the understanding and the utilization of all things that came in from a marketing, let's say, inbound perspective, and the bridge to what sales may be working on from an opportunity creation. And so that middle role is often that conduit, and oftentimes the ones, getting deep into the weeds as to what worked, what didn't work, where do we need to go deeper, or hey, when I spoke to the customer, this is what I heard, and so we may need to go and run a couple plays or actions or do a little bit more personalization here and here. And so that middle role of BDR management, and the people that feed that BDR engine, so your inbound, your campaigns team, they very much are playing and sitting right there with that BDR role. At the same time, the sales leaders are sitting there saying, hey, how can I accelerate pipeline and early stage deal velocity by better understanding what worked and what didn't work. But organizationally, you mentioned something about like sometimes it is all hands on deck or it's multiple pieces of the organization. We're a pretty small organization and marketing team, and so there are a lot of our team is got a piece of this recipe for success is part of their day-to-day operations. And so there are a lot of hands to feed, but one thing that we have kind of solidified is that you can't have too many cooks in the kitchen. You've got to have kind of some centralization. And so we do that centralization through kind of two key partners within marketing, but everybody feeds into that very succinctly so that, one, we all learn, but two, there's just consistency of voices that plays into the sales team as well. But it started tops down, bottoms up. And we all recognize this is our way to accelerate, and we're going to have to do it together.
Love it. Love it. Well, so I feel like I probably could talk to you for another hour about this stuff. It's just such a great conversation, but I know that we've got to start wrapping up here soon. And what we like to do is we like to close out with kind of like some of the things that I heard that you said that I think are things that our listeners should really take home. So this is like the key takeaways. So number one is that there's so many use cases for marketers to adopt AI. It can help you code things. It can help you with data analysis, creating content, creative, so many options to use AI to be more efficient. Ultimately, for Sonatype, it helps you move things along a lot faster. It helps you get to approvals a lot more quickly. It allows you to do things like A/B testing a lot easier. And next on your agenda here within the next couple of months is integrating GPT into your CRM, where who knows what that's going to unlock, but a lot of possibilities there. Another key takeaway was that, when it comes to evaluating a vendor for your team, you're asking the questions about how AI fits into their roadmap. And because it's really helping you evaluate the longevity of this product. Is this product going to be viable in 12 months, 24 months? And if they're not doing anything with AI and not, forward facing with AI, they might become obsolete in 12 to 24 months. Then you're back evaluating again. Another one that you mentioned is that, a purchase isn't done by one person, it's a committee. And so we need to be able to take attribution from probably what it's been historically and using it to really understand the full buyer's journey as much as possible so that we can get as much intelligence into that as we possibly can. And then ultimately, that's another one of the use cases for AI is to help us visualize and see that full buyer's journey. Another one was just that, we're about to start seeing search and display ads in LLMs, and this industry is about to change dramatically. And that marketers need to stay on top of that. We're kind of entering into the birth of the LLM recommendation industry and how we can optimize that. And it's kind of an exciting time, but also a little bit like, oh, who knows what's going to happen here? And then last one is, because marketing is no longer the hoarders of data, which I love that term that you used, other aspects of the business are able to benefit from that data as well. And as a matter of fact, that data is acting as a bridge to help actually, get marketing and sales more aligned, more on the same page, and pulling the rope in the same direction.
That's right. I think that the ultimate vision of go-to-market really is realized because data is at the core. It's the uniting bond that each one of our functions, whether you're CS, sales, marketing, even the G&A functions, right? The finance is trying to get predictability out of what we do. A product very much cares about this data. That data is the uniting factor, and that go-to-market motion is 10 times stronger because we all share that same data set and we have the ability to do something with it, right? Our own respective disciplines and magic that we need to run because it's all coming from the same single source. And that is a ultimate goal that we've all hoped for. And I think if we're not there, we're close to it. It's just a matter of then what do we do with it once we all play together, and how do we talk together, leveraging that data to truly and systematically see that buyer's journey from cradle to grave more holistically.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. So Megan, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate it. We know that your time is valuable. So thank you so much for joining and sharing your thoughts. Like I said, I could probably do this for another hour and not run out of things to talk about. So just really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.